PSA wants their money, friends. How much did you say? I'm sorry, how much?
And we hold the world ransom for $1 million.
A little piece of news in the bulk subbing world of PSA grading. Stick around. Hello, sports card collectors, investors, all of my collectibles friends. How is everybody doing? I got a fresh haircut today. I'm feeling pretty good. Not as shaggy as I was just a couple of hours ago. Feeling pretty good. If you're new here, subscribe, stay a while, hit the like button if you like what you hear, a little tappity tap on the notification bell, and connect with me on Instagram at The Personal Finance Dad and Twitter, The Personal Finance Dad. All right, today's news was interesting, and I will say that in this video, I'm not going to dive into what I believe the inner workings are for kind of each of the parties involved in this particular story, because I think that that sort of speculation is just kind of, it's not really worth the time, because none of us really know the inner workings of any of these companies, these parties involved. You see a headline, you react to it.
Par is editor of a magazine that follows the industry.
How big a hit is this? This is as big or bigger than anything the toy industry has ever seen. I'll give you one comparison. Barbie, which is an institution, does about $500 million a year. Nintendo does over 3 times as much.
What I'm really wanting to talk about more of is just the bigger picture of bulk subbing in general. And I think that's the real story here. That's really more than what we're talking about today. So specifically what has happened is there was reports that Mark's Cards had a bulk subber for PSA, has or had grading fees. Again, still trying to wait to see kind of what is real and what isn't. But there are reports, rumors, whatever you want to call it, of $1 million+ in grading fees that are potentially hanging out there. And where there's a little bit of a twist is Ryan Card Collector 2 had about $120,000 of this particular subber's stuff. And so Ryan Card Collector 2 is very well known in the hobby. He's got a big national trade night. He's got an awesome store in Ohio. He's got tens of thousands of followers on Instagram and on YouTube, and is really an all-around good guy. Now look, did I ride bikes with him as a kid and go up to the grocery store and get Big League Chew?
You're in the big leagues when you make a perfect slide. You're in the big leagues when you keep the team alive. You're in the big leagues when you block a shot or two. You're in the big leagues when you're in the big league chew.
Big League Chew, man-sized wads of great tasting shredded bubble gum stuffed into a giant Stay Fresh pouch. For Big League flavor and Big League bubbles, it's Big League Chew.
You're in the big leagues when you're in the big league chew.
And play on the same T-ball team with him? Do I know him that well? No, I don't. But everything I've seen about this guy is just solid, rock solid. And really, when the story came out, of course, he is out in front of it. And so if you're watching this video, what I will say is also go to Instagram, Card Collector 2, and he's got a video up. It's what, 15-20 minute video talking about this very subject. And so if you're looking for the details from his side, it's right there. So yes, you can take, look, I'm here kind of presenting some of the information, but if you want to hear from the horse's mouth, Ryan Card Collector 2 on Instagram, Card Collector 2, I would go there and just listen to what he has to say, because he does give a good breakdown. It's more detailed. And again, it's from him. It's not second or third hand or fourth hand or whatever. So the gist of this story is Ryan kind of, I guess, figured out that he had paid for these submissions. The submissions had not been paid for. And so he went directly to PSA and wrote a check, another check for $120,000, $110,000, kind of the balance. There was some that was paid towards it, according to what he said, but there was still a significant 6-figure balance. He took care of that so that he could get his cards back to his customers, back to Ohio. So that piece worked out. Now, all the inner workings and what's going to happen after that, of course, that'll have to be sorted out on its own. But when we think about bulk subbing, and this is something that, it hasn't really been talked about very much, but, you're handing cards off to a third party. and you're kind of, you're trusting them to take care of things. There are a ton of reputable bulk subbers. You could probably argue the majority of them. But I think too, with this kind of wonky world that we were in over the last couple of years, where you just had kind of everything being submitted, and depending on kind of the business model for each of these submitters, and I don't know if they all have the same sort of deal where, you're paying upfront to that bulk submitter and then they pay once, because if you don't know, you don't pay PSA until they're done grading. And then when it's done grading, then you pay. So it's almost as if the bulk subber is kind of holding that in escrow. They're somewhat of an escrow company. Well, they're acting like one. Unfortunately, though, we just don't know. You don't know which ones will, which ones won't, and that can be kind of tricky. And then, of course, you've got tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of cards that are coming back. And I think that down the line, I think you have to worry about this, whether it be from the customer side paying. I don't know, some bulk submitters might be like, just pay me when the cards come back. And then those customers are nowhere to be found. They're out of the hobby. I don't know. It depends on kind of how it's all set up. In this particular case, it was fortunate because Ryan has a great business, has the funds, came out, made it happen for his customers, but what if that bulk subber doesn't have the means or didn't plan for that and is not able to come up with that money? That's kind of that's sticky, and so that's something where, whether we're talking about PSA or BGS or SGC, it really doesn't matter, CSG, whichever company it is, this is something that, has got to be paid attention to. And I wonder, this is kind of the obvious thing that I think is coming. PSA charging up front for their grading fees. I would assume if they get burned enough, or, this is kind of the cost of business for a company that large, there is going to be some of these things that fall through the cracks that don't work out. And I'm sure they're aware of that, especially with unprecedented growth that you've seen over the last couple of years. PSA has graded more cards in the last couple of years than they have in probably the previous 10 years combined. They're grading an astronomical amount of cards. And so the thought that, everybody's going to have the money at the end of the line, that everyone's going to be ready to pay, especially with upcharges and everything else, I'm sure that PSA has that built into their business model to be able to, insulate themselves from those losses. They're going to go down as losses, obviously. On just kind of a side note, I think that, unfortunately, there's been a lot of wonky hobby news lately, negative news, if you will, whether it be, there's fake cards, there's fake this, there's fake that, there's scammers here, there's scammers there. But I do think the hobby as a whole is a well-oiled machine. And maybe I'm just the eternal optimist on this. I know there's a lot of people that kind of want to see the world burn and they want to see this stuff go bad. I'm not one of those people. I don't like to see stories like this. Obviously, it's content for the channel, and this is a part of it. I'm not just going to talk about all the good news. You also have to talk about the bad news too. There's got to be a really good mix. I think I have a responsibility to my viewership to talk about all these things, because there's always lessons to be learned with all of this. There's lessons to be learned, and just being careful and being diligent. We are in an unregulated hobby where we do have to watch out for each other. And so it's important to talk about these things. I don't want to go off the deep end and think that every bulk subber on the planet is terrible, because I think there's a lot of great companies out there that are doing really, really good work. And so I don't want to go completely off of the deep end, but let me know your thoughts on this, guys. Do you have a bulk subber that you really like working with? Do you have a situation where you're kind of like, oh, seems kind of weird, I don't know what's going on? I'd like to hear kind of your thoughts in the comments. I know there's some people have talked to me about, like, why not just go direct to the company? Why not just go direct to the grading company? I think there's probably times to do that, times to not. It's the same reason you would use a broker for things. It's like, why do we use a broker for anything? Why do we use a middleman for anything? And it's usually because there's something in it for us from a price standpoint, as far as the customer goes, price standpoint, turnaround time, there's some sort of a benefit. And so we use that middleman, that agent, that broker, or that bulk submitter to handle these things for us. Unfortunately, sometimes things don't work out, but let me know what you think. I want to hear the thoughts. And again, check out Ryan's Card Collector 2, his Instagram. Like I said, he's got a video there that really kind of talks through this stuff, and it gives more insight, and it's more direct insight. Thank you very much for joining. I hope you have an amazing rest of your day. Stay healthy, stay awesome. I will talk to you again later.